Let's get into the headlines.
We'll get straight into the headlines. And as predicted, the Daily Graphic Weekend Special is reporting 4 MPs suspended over chaos, 7-member committee to investigate. The story comes with the photograph of the 4 members of parliament, including the chief whips on both sides and 2 other members. So in effect, 1 majority member of parliament and 3 minority MPs have been suspended. Frank Anodonpre, minority chief whip, Roxy Nelson Dafiamekpo, majority chief whip, Al Hassan Tampuli, MP for Gushegu, and Jerry Ahmed Shaib, MP for Weja Bawe. It's interesting because for Jerry, he's been at parliament for barely a month.
Yeah, it's his first term.
He's been at parliament for barely a month, right? And he's already been suspended.
Right.
It will be interesting to see whether they'll appeal this decision, considering the circumstances.
I'm sure they will, because speaking to some lawyers, what they mention is that even in the laws or the rule books of Parliament, you can only suspend them for... Yes, they are standing order. You can suspend them for, I think it's just 10 days. No, not 10 days. You can suspend them for 2 days, pending an investigation. The investigation should have been done before the suspension came about. So
and also here, Oral is saving Ghana from devastating corruption. Story on page 5. Ablakwa tells Appointments Committee Ghana Comoros forged trade infrastructure ties. As we all know, the Comoros president is in the country. He met with our president, John Dramani Mahama, and is also expected to participate in the ongoing Africa Prosperity Dialogue series. So, these are the big stories on the Daily Graphic Weekend Special.
Okay, I have the Mirror on the front page. You'll see Matilda Alumatu-Osayajima elected chair of IAEA Board of Governors. From forest to fame, William Plange's journey to resilience. Outdated plumbing techniques threaten building safety and longevity. And on the back page, you see the Mirror Sports. They've highlighted Desmond Affair. He is a UEFA A Level 4 coach.
He's going to join the Black Stars as assistant coach.
Yeah.
In a move that the sports people will tell you was announced in the in the cover of darkness. At the time they announced the move, everybody was asleep. Yeah. So but it's all good.
Like Gabby and you say. Be anything. Be something, but be anything. All right, I have the Spectator Weekend Companion. Some of the stories you'll find on the page. Plight of inmates at Kumasi Central Prison. Banku, Keta schoolboys, soup served daily. Mama Akuseme II bringing hope, development to Avetakpo community. Pregnant women, girls cautioned against alcoholism, substance abuse. And on the back page, Desmond Affair is here again.
Did I hear you right? Pregnant women?
Yeah. And girls cautioned against alcoholism, substance abuse.
Pregnant women?
Pregnant women.
And girls?
And girls. Right, we'll get into that a bit later. On the back page, Spectator Sports, let Affair chart his own path. All of you sports enthusiasts are being asked. It's why Sherman FC plots protocol 4. Do you have some of our websites?
Yes, so I have ChannelOneNews.com. I won't be a conduit for misinformation. Minister for Government Communications designate Felix Ofosu Kwache, also MP for Ebura, Kwaman Kese. He's been speaking. They're doing his vetting yesterday at the Appointments Committee. No job losses after Information Ministry scrapping. Felix Ofosu Kwache also with that one. Climate resistant initiatives needed to resolve climate threat. That's coming in from Isif Hussein. Also here, Parliament must not become lawless. Francis Xavier Sosu backs Bagbin sanctions. Only 155 Ghanaians are facing imminent deportation from the U.S. It was revealed by the Foreign Minister designate Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa when he met the Appointments Committee yesterday. Mahama nominates Johnson Esiama as BOG governor. Oral has saved 20 bungalows from demolition. That's also coming in from Ablakwa. Will reshuffle ambassadors who don't meet KPIs. Ablakwa with that one as well. Government will leverage on foreign policy to address rising unemployment. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa Clerk of Appointments Committee is biased. She should resign. Minority with that call. We won't allow you to force your way into ministerial approvals. Minority tells majority, I'm determined to make Ghana a pharmaceutical hub. Minta Akando pledges. ASEPA, the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, has been speaking because a lot has been happening in our 9th parliament, and they say Ghana's parliament is losing public confidence. That's coming in from the executive director of ASEPA, Dr. Draman. Some more stories here. U.S. withdrawal from Paris Climate Accord unfortunate. Ablakwa also with that one. Earlier on in the week, before Ablakwa will take the center stage, Sam Jatta George, Jatta, not his real name though, made the appointments committee, and it was all kinds of interesting. So Sam George early on, this story says, I'll take action against MNOs with poor quality service. That's mobile network operators. He's referring to court orders release of withheld WASI results after parents' petition. And some more stories here. Government to address Airtel Tigo's challenges with new roadmap. And as an Airtel Tigo user of over 16 years, probably.
You use Airtel Tigo?
Yeah, since like 2008.
I thought it was a Vodafone number.
No, it's an Airtel Tigo now.
I mean, MTN. No, you use Airtel.
Yeah, over since 2008, 9ish.
Oh wow,
yeah,
you're
so
loyal.
I'm a long-serving loyal customer.
You're loyal.
It proves that I'll be loyal and faithful in other things.
If you say so.
And finally, noise pollution to be included in the EPA Act. Murtala Mohammed, Minister for Environment, Science and Technology there. So these are some of the big stories. And of course, early on in the week as well, James Klucha-Beji replaced Reverend Ogbami Tete as SEC boss.
Okay, I have the gna.org.gh open. Some of the stories you'll find. Ministerial vetting, Oral saves 20 bungalows. That's according to Ablakwa. About 12 million people in Ghana still risk contracting NTDs. That's according to WHO. Let's mobilize resources to withstand the shocks of HIV funding crisis, government told. Ablakwa calls for renegotiation of DRIP amidst $100 million inflation concerns. Establishment of permanent joint commission will enhance Ghana Comoros Corporation. That's President Mahama when he met the Comoros delegation. Vetting, I dislike inhumane treatment to Ghanaians during visa acquisition, Ablakwa says so. Choose capable private partners for successful PPP, expert advisors. Chairman of Constitution Review Committee reiterates commitment to fulfilling mandate. Trade Minister to design policy to empower women in industry. Other stories you'll find. Ablakwa vows to push for presidential travel policy to ensure transparency, accountability. President Mahama nominates Dr. Johnson Esiama as BOG governor. Ministerial vetting, government will establish Mahama Care Fund to cater for chronic diseases. That's according to Minta Akando. Other stories you'll find. Communication Minister designate promises efficiency, streamline new SIM registration process. We're going to re-register our SIMs. Jude, we're going to re-register our
But thankfully,
SIMs.
I mean, the minister designates for communications says that it won't involve the long queues. Everything will be done, in the comfort of your homes, right? Okay. So you'll be able to do it with that. We'll see how it pans out. But I mean, it's been an interesting week, the vetting, the comments, some people disagree with how some of the nominees appeared before. Of course, the conduct of the committee itself in the way it vetted some nominees, also raised serious concerns. So, for example, Mita and Kando's nomination vetting process, for example, people felt, it was used to sort of settle or prove a point rather than, assess the competence of the nominee, right? So after he was vetted, for instance, you hear the minority leader say, Mr. Chairman, you see how we've done this one quickly. So when we are doing another one and it's taking long, don't think that we have an agenda of a sort. But people wanted to hear the real issues with our health sector. We are coming on the back of a no-bed syndrome issue. You go to some other places, it actually still persists, right? We have real challenges with clearing drugs from the ports, you know, financial issues within the health sector.
As a health journalist,
you know,
as a health journalist, you know, I mostly report stories in the health sector.
That's true.
So the kidney patients are concerned whether this government, this administration will continue free dialysis. Nobody.
No idea whatsoever.
Nobody could ask him that question. Cholera in outbreak. 2025.
You know,
CSM. There's so many things I can point to.
That's true.
And yet, no question on any of these policies on the way forward, on HPMV, which is hanging around China and will definitely find its way to Ghana. Nothing. It was what? Was it 33 minutes or so? Less than 33 minutes. It was
just around 30 minutes.
Yeah, just around 30 minutes thereabout. And then you ask them absolutely nothing. So people are there. I remember the spokesperson for the Renal Patients Association texted me that, so now, like, what do they do? And I'm like, they should hold on. I'm sure they'll definitely have plans for them. I don't know whether it falls under the Mahama Care that.
It was disappointing, right? So yeah, he mentioned actually mentioned the Mahama Care project, you know, but of course he didn't go into the details. And the concern for a lot of people is that how are you going to be able to fund all of these elaborate, you know, projects? He talks about Mahama Care, which is supposed to be funding for chronic ailments. He also talks about the fact that we're going to offer free primary health care, right? And a lot of people are asking the question, how are you going to fund this? What are you going to do to be able to deliver on this really huge promise, right? So for me, it left more questions than answers, and a lot of people are not happy. Of course, I don't even want to talk about the Greater Accra Regional Minister.
Oh, Lord. Right? We know you, so...
Yeah, that's like a whole different show on its own.
All the things Accra has played with, the darkness, no street markings. If, at least just ask her, what are your plans for the Greater Accra region?
Yeah, let's give us like a 5-point or 10-point development plan of a sort.
For the Greater Accra region. You know, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Is this how we're going to go ahead with our vetting process?
I listened to the minority leaders' justification for, you know, how they went about their vetting, and I was even more disappointed, right? Because then he says that he knows, you know, as a committee they know her. Yeah. But we the people she's coming to, we don't know her, right? So she's not my MP, so I can't really be.
Even if she's your MP, you don't
know.
We
need to know
her
what her priorities are, how she intends to go about developing the region. So that was also quite disappointing. And of course, we saw the Sam George vetting, 5 hours plus, you know. Started off quite well, his understanding of the issues in the sector, how he's going to handle this whole significant market player issue with MTN and other, you know, how to also bring up other telcos to be on their feet, issues around cybersecurity. I mean, he was taking on the issues very well until we started hearing tweets and videos being played at him. So, you know, and that took a completely different turn because people were expecting that, you know, let's judge a nominee based on his, you know, understanding of the portfolio ahead. Of course, previous conduct and, you know, previous utterances need to be, you know, asked, and you know, a decision, you know, we need to be understood why some of these actions were taken in the past. But the point essentially is that he's there for a particular role, right? So if you now, he's not going to be a culture or religious affairs minister. And, you know, people for the whole LGBT thing was, you know, dragging the nomination, the vetting for the minister nominee for communication. So, you know, depending on the side you belong, you either be, you know, at a point, you know, angered or very excited, and, you know, you have the business of both political parties urging their members on the appointments committee on, you know, it gave a really, really, at a point, grim look. But there have been positives, right? So you listen to people, they talk to you about the vetting of the fisheries minister, for example, the understanding of the issues in the sector, and how it brings up the Ashanti regional minister, Dr. Frank Amwakoine, fantastic guy by all standards, right? Some of the regional ministers, the Uti regional minister, Mr. Japan, you know, his longevity within the space and how he's able to, you know, bring his own ideas on board on how he intends to develop the OT region, which in his view has been fairly neglected for some time. So, you know,
after all of this, it was marred by that embarrassing moment where I don't understand why people that we have voted into power,
absolutely,
all we expect you to do, yes, and tempers are high, you are tired, you've been sitting there for God knows how long. Just go into a caucus and decide, do we continue or do we not continue? Then it denigrates to destruction of property, which I'm so happy we're not the ones going to be paying for. If we hear the speaker right, we hear the speaker right, he's asked the auditors to go ahead, audit it, and let him know the amount so that, you know, those found culpable pay for it.
You have so much hope in the...
I have hope in the speaker.
That is the way to go.
In the speaker's words.
We should have trust.
But honestly, that was one embarrassing moment. Actually watching it on BBC the following morning, I was like, oh my God.
What's happening?
Oh my God.
You know, not to hold grief for them, but right, in other democracies, people go that extreme, right? Even though it's important, we make the point that, see, this is not the kind of scenes we want to be seeing. So,
and, you know, I'm sure they're ashamed of themselves. That's why they apologize. We accept their apology, but we just hope that it doesn't happen again.
That's funny because the following morning, it nearly happened. When the minority decided to take on the clerk of the appointments committee. That was also another scene that, to many, it felt inappropriate.
Yeah,
you know, a woman was being heckled and being shouted at, you are partisan, you are corrupt.
Another thing that I didn't agree with were the supporters of the nominees
entering there.
No, not even entering. Having the audacity to hurl insults and partisan words at the minority. It was absolutely wrong for me.
Upon Nkrumah mentioned
absolutely wrong for me.
We haven't verified that, but according to the Member of Parliament for Fuasia UB, Kojo Upon Nkrumah, at a point there were persons perceived to be thugs inside the perimeter of the area where the vetting.
And that means the security are not doing their job well.
How
are you and for just me, allowing everybody and anybody inside?
I agree with the speaker's decision in a point, right? Not necessarily about the reconstitution of that point, but they need to take a break and, you know, assess. Yeah. You know, I think they're done with the ministerial, the substantive ministers. You know, now will be the time for the deputies. It could be more chaotic than this, right? So it's important that, you know, they review the process and see the loopholes, plug it, you know, and come out more. But I mean, see, in other countries, you know, like I was telling you, I was following the US.
Seen the US one,
you put
the two together.
Yeah, it didn't get as confrontational to the point where, you know, but it was quite heated. It was also quite heated. You know, people's personal issues were brought to the fore. People's comments about minorities, you know, people were pushed to the wall. So to a point, you know, I disagree. People say Apendo is taking too long to. No. What's the point? He know, if he feels that the minority feel that they need to get to the bottom of an issue, then they reserve the rights to do that. Yeah. You know, the former finance minister, he had his vetting over 2 days.
Yes.
So,
yes, I remember that. Like, over 2 days. So
it has a way it helps our democracy, and we shouldn't be very dismissive of it.
But when you're tweeting and writing your Facebook things,
you have to be careful.
Think about it, because you never know when you find yourself in front of, you know, whoever you probably tweeted or wrote that message about. So just, you know, Adiamatri. Okay, it's good. In 10 years, will it affect me? In 3 years, if I'm sitting in front of prominent people, maybe seeking to assume a certain position, will it affect me? So really think about your tweets, your important. Social media messages, and all of that.
That's very important.
A word to the wise.
It's in the north. Let me bring you this story. You know, so it summarizes a lot of what happened in Parliament in the past couple of days. Ministerial vetting fallout. 4 MPs suspended over chaos. 7-member committee to investigate. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, has suspended 4 members of Parliament from the sittings of the House for 2 weeks starting yesterday. The affected MPs are Majority Chief Whip and MP for South Dai, Roxy Nelson Dafiamepo, the Minority Chief Whip and MP for Nsawam Adwojiri, Frank Anot Dompre, the MP for Gushegu Al-Hassan Sulemana Tampuli, and the Member of Parliament for Wija Bawe, Jerry Ahmed Shaib. The Speaker said the conduct of the 4 MPs had seriously undermined the credibility of Parliament and urged punitive action to be taken against them. Reading a communication in respect of the happenings at the appointment committee last Thursday and yesterday, Mr. Bagbin also constituted a 7-member special committee to conduct a full-scale investigation into violent confrontations among MPs during the confirmation hearing. He said the committee shall identify all members involved in the disorder and submit its report with findings and recommendations within 10 days from yesterday. Any member found culpable shall face the appropriate disciplinary measures as prescribed by the 1992 Constitution, the Parliament Act of 1965, and the Standing Orders of Parliament. He said the committee, chaired by MP for Whole West, Emmanuel Bedra, has other members as the MP for Asante Akim Central, Kwame Eyimedu Entry, MP for Ewutu Senya West, Gisela Akushika Tete Agbotui, MP for Etiwa East, Abna Osei Asare, MP for Klote Kole, Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rollins, MP for Doma West, Vincent Opon Asamoah, and MP for Laura Bid Zidane. And it also talks about a surcharge for violent MPs and the reconstitution of the committee. Except for it briefly, says in a bid to stop the recurrence of misconduct, Mr. Bagbin called for an immediate meeting of the committee selection yesterday to reconstitute the appointments committee as a matter of urgency. He said such a meeting would help to set up the Standing Orders Committee to reconsider revision of the rules for the assessment of nominees for the consideration and approval by the House. So this very move by the Speaker is why the MPP or the minority at the appointments committee decided to recuse themselves from participation in the ongoing vetting process. This morning, we are hearing reports that about 10 people were vetted yesterday after even the whole of the day yesterday. I think 5 more were vetted after the MPP or the minority walked out. The standing orders, according to the majority's interpretation, means that they still have quorum to go about business, so they went about it, and they've actually approved 10 of all of those, or 12 names actually, that were vetted yesterday for parliamentary approval. And you know, if you read their standing order, they argue that since the committee approved them, there is no need for an open vote when Parliament resumes somewhere next week. It will probably have to be a yeah or no kind of thing. And but definitely you should trust the Apenyo-Markin-led minority to come up with some resistance of a sort when Parliament resumes in plenary this coming week.
It holds on the majority to be there in their numbers, because then if they require the minority to pass their members, then they'll find themselves wanting.
Yeah, so that's the job of the whips. Now the whips are not in place, but of course they have deputies, right?
Yeah.
And of course the majority leaders themselves, the leaders would also have a role to play in this. But the point is that the majority argued that there were enough members on the committee to form a quorum, despite the removal of both the majority and minority chief whips, right? So they voted on the nominees.
I'm actually talking about when it gets to the floor of Parliament. So you remember, I think somewhere last week, Apenya was saying that the majority needed them to pass their people. So if, according to, going by yesterday's vetting where the majority took some people through and they passed them, if it gets to the floor of Parliament and their numbers are not significant enough, and they require the help of the minority.
But the point is that the majority is saying that as it stands now at the committee level, they don't need to go into plenary to vote openly again, because the committee by consensus passed all of these 10 people. So now when it goes to plenary or it goes on the floor of Parliament, it's going to be a simple or and that one, it is who has the loudest voice basically in the room. Wow. So for the majority, their job is done. But like I'm saying, I don't expect the minority to go down without a fight.
Oh, of course not.
They will come and demand explanation of the speaker's ruling as to whether the committee had the rights to go ahead with the vetting, or because in their view wasn't properly constituted, they have to redo the vetting, probably from Okujeto again all over. So it's going to be a really long week ahead of us. And some of the scenes on your screen, very unpleasant, you know, not proper.
Embarrassing. That's the word for it. Very embarrassing.
I was in the chamber when
very shameful.
The 8th Parliament was being sworn in, and the Speaker was supposed to have been elected. You know, Bagbin would eventually be elected, right? You know, the scenes were crazy. Like, I was stunned. You know, I was running commentary with Selim. Of course, Selim, I don't know, was the one running commentary at the time. And I was with him. You bounced it off me. You know, at a point, I was speechless because I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why, you know, members of parliament to conduct themselves in that manner. So, hey.
Look at that, look at that, look at that. Literally sitting on a table to push it. Charlie, let's put these people aside. So I have the Spectator.
Yeah.
A very interesting story. Plight of inmates at Kumasi Central Prisons. Banku Keta schoolboy soup served daily. So that's all they've been eating. The only time that they eat rice, apparently, and let me give you a bit of that story. The consumption of rice as a staple food may be very common in many homes, but this is not so at the Kumasi Central Prisons, where inmates enjoy the staple once in a year, specifically during the Christmas festivities. For the inmates, their daily bread has been banku and Keta schoolboy soup. According to the Deputy Director of Prisons, James B. Mwenyele, the Ashanti Regional Commander of Prisons and officer in charge of the Kumasi Central Prison, serving inmates rice would require a total of 16 bags of the 50 kg rice bags. Speaking to the Spectator, he said, though Gari was a good alternative, it remains expensive for the prison's authority. For the large number of the inmates, the authorities cannot even afford Gari, let alone beans, to serve as protein. So we rely on Keta schoolboys as a source of protein. Rice is expensive. The authority cannot afford it for this number of inmates we are dealing with. It is reason why we may be considering rice for them at Christmas, he noted. This is actually very sad. So, you know, the feeding grant is 1.80 Ghana cedis. Even you sitting here, Jude, 1 cedi 80 pesos. Right? Yes. 1 cedi 80 pesos. What can you buy with 1 cedi 80 pesos? Absolutely nothing.
The Minister for Interior.
Yes, I think he said he'd review it.
Mubarak
1 cedi 80 pesos.
You know, he mentioned that, see, he doesn't even feed his cat 1 cedi 80 pesos.
1 cedi 80.
You know, it's demeaning.
I didn't know the mama the cat.
Yeah, it's demeaning and it's inhumane. So it's important we review some of these things. You know, the essence of prison is not for condemnation, or it's not to condemn people, right, and leave them to rot. Of course, people argue that if you're on life sentence, then, you know, but the whole purpose of prison is actually, you know, reformation, right, to help them become proper fits for society when they finish serving their term. And I don't see how you keep somebody under that circumstance. Already, there are living conditions in a very deplorable state, and now you feed them a very obviously malnourished, you know, meal, you know, and expect that they come back and they are able to be meaningful to society. So it's important to review some of these things, and these are some of the issues, you know, the sector minister, you know, the interior, who is also responsible for our prisons, will be having to deal with. So we'll see how he's able to handle some of these things. But it's a big tax ahead for all ministers, you know, especially, and this coming months, you know, up until from now to the end of the first quarter, will be very important in how they make some of these decisions that will ultimately impact, you know, their tenure and, of course, what they seek to achieve in their respective ministries.
I have another story here. Pregnant women, girls cautioned against alcoholism, substance abuse.
Yeah, the story is somewhere. You know, I'm not getting it clearly.
Yeah, so the midwife, Miss Susanna Chumwa, in charge of the antenatal and postnatal clinics at the Sunyai Teaching Hospital, has expressed concern about growing trend of alcoholism and substance abuse among pregnant women and girls. She noted that bad and unhealthy practices remained inimical to their growth and development, as well as their unborn babies too, and asked them to desist from self-medication too. In an interview with the Ghana News Agency in Sunyai during a visit to the facility, Ms. Chumwa also urged the pregnant women and girls to attend antenatal clinics regularly to stem macerated stillbirths. They must also endeavor to deliver at health facilities, she advised, saying that would enable specialists to attend to manage labor complications. Ms. Chumwa said pregnant women and girls also needed to know obstetric history, saying that would enable them to go through labor without difficulties and complications. A midwife on duty, Mr. Lakweyanin, also cautioned pregnant women against tedious work that could lead to miscarriage and other health complications, and urged them to endeavor to visit health facilities whenever they noticed abnormalities in their body system. So I'm assuming that women in Sunyai, because this is a story from Sunyai, have resorted to drinking alcohol while they're pregnant. I hope that it's either they do not know that they're pregnant or they just don't care. Or because for the life of me, I don't understand why a pregnant woman carrying a baby to full term to life would actually smoke or drink alcohol. Substance abuse for a growing child in your belly, that's unfortunate.
You know, I'm thinking about it. I'm wondering.
That's unfortunate.
And this is why we need a lot of public education, public awareness creation on the dangers of some of these things.
That's very unfortunate.
Because definitely, you know,
Your
even
child will come
for
with
people who are not pregnant, they tell you, you know, limit alcohol, don't drink alcohol.
One glass, your child will come out with all these deformities, and then you'll be blaming God, why, God, why? But meanwhile, you were doing the wrong thing. I'm sure, even for pregnant women, sometimes when you have a headache, it's advisable you speak to your doctor before even taking a pain reliever. So yeah, all of those are substance abuse. So if they think you're not doing the alcohol, but you may be taking you know, a pain reliever when you have a headache, that's all substance abuse, and it could affect your child. So let's be careful and minded.
And some really great news from the international scene. UN appoints Ghana's Hannah Tete as special envoy to Libya. You know, when the NDC won the elections in December, a lot of people thought she'd be coming down home to serve in some capacity, but it looks like diplomacy it is for Madam Hannah Sewa Tete. The United Nations chief Antonio Guterres last Friday announced the appointment of Hannah Sewa Tete of Ghana as the global body's new special envoy to Libya and head of the United Nations support mission in Libya, replacing Senegal's Abdoulaye Bathily, who stepped down last May. The former foreign minister of Ghana, who more recently has been Secretary General Antonio Guterres' special representative to the Horn of Africa, is the 10th person since 2011 to occupy the sensitive post of special envoy and head of the UN support mission in Libya. That's the UNSMIL. So we wish Madam Hannah Tete the very best as she takes over this new role, and hope she's able to work very earnestly to ensure that, you know, all of the happenings in that part of the world is really, you know, calm is restored there really, and they can begin to make progress as a people.
Right. I wish we could delve into Desmond Affair, our new, you know, assistant coach, but we'll get there, because if I start, you won't end.